Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bigger on the Inside, the new Doctor Who Watch Along podcast. This is just Harry speaking today, as this is a very special instalment of the podcast, for I have had the wonderful opportunity to have a one-on-one interview with Mark Corden. Mark Corden was a second assistant director for Series 12, the most recent series of Doctor Who, as well as the most recent special, Revelation of the Daleks. And in addition to that, he also played Omega in The Timeless Children, making him the very first actor to provide a face to that character, as we'd only seen him before in the Three Doctors, the classic Who story. In this interview, we talk about his experiences as Omega and working on Doctor Who as a second AD, as well as his relationship with the show beforehand. As it turns out, Mark was a huge, lifelong fan of the show before working on it, and that, of course, made his experiences working on the show very special. I hope that you enjoy. That's all from me now. We'll be going into the interview. Thank you very much for joining me, Mark. So before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty, I was just wondering, prior to working on the show, what was your relationship to Doctor Who?
Well, I've actually been a massive Doctor Who fan since I was a kid. So right back to when Peter Davidson was running around with his decorative vegetable in the early 80s. I remember, I think Warriors of the Deep is my first memory of it, when he gets pushed off the balcony into the water, and my brother and I used to recreate that in the local swimming baths. Or I say we would. I would recreate it by throwing my brother off the side of the swimming pool and into the water. Yeah, and to be honest with you, I've always loved it. I learned to reading the Target books before we had the videos. Then I used to buy all the old videos so I could see, what it was like. I used to get my dad to take me down to the Longleat Doctor Who exhibition, so you could see all the props and the costumes and things like that. So yeah, I've absolutely adored the show. Even back in the 90s when it wasn't being made, I used to read the Virgin novels and then the Eighth Doctor ones after the movie came out. I went to the Bonham's auction sometime, probably in the early 90s. They sold off a lot of props and costumes. They were having a massive clear out. So I actually own an original costume from Nightmare of Eden, a big sort of silver spacesuit, and also the three radiation helmets from Planet of Fire. At the end, when Peter Davison puts the guy in it and he walks through the flames on Sarn, I think it is.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a really obsessive kind of proper geeky fan. Even a few years before I worked on the show, I'd started going out to the Gallifrey One convention in Los Angeles, which is every February, which is the world's biggest Doctor Who convention, and is absolutely brilliant. If you ever get the chance to go, you really should. It's phenomenal. I remember getting there. I had a friend who's Tony Lee, who's written various comic books and for Big Finish, and he'd sort of persuaded me to go out, and I met him for a quick bite to eat in the bar at about 6 o'clock in the evening, and then he said he was going to go off and have a quick nap, change of clothes, and meet me down here in a couple of hours. And I said I'd do the same, and I think I managed to make about 10 feet out of the hall before I managed to just get chatting to a load of people and having a great time, and didn't move. I was still in my shorts and t-shirts, and I think I still had my bag with me from the flight.
Incredible. So you really are like a serious lifelong fan.
I am. Wow. I mean, I can't overestimate how important it's been. I mean, I genuinely did learn to reading the books. I got into working in film and television because I had a love for the show. I mean, I think, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be the Doctor. I was a bit older, I wanted to play the Doctor. And then when I realized I wasn't going to be an actor, I wanted to, work on the show and be involved in it somehow. So, in many ways, that absolutely led to me getting into the film and TV industry. And as a, a disproportionate number of people you meet have had some, in the industry have had a love for it and have sort of been inspired by it in various different ways.
I mean, I guess that only makes sense because it really is a British institution. So I feel like there is a huge correlation between people from all parts of this industry who in some way have been affected by Doctor Who, especially because it's the stuff like the special effects and switching actors is one of those shows where you really are aware of the production side of it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it is constantly reinventing itself. And it's inspiring in a sense of the creativity, whether it's the storytelling, acting, the visuals, like you say, the costume making. There's so much that you can take from it and use, not just to copy, but actually to inspire you to do something of your own twist on it, your own version, because who knows what's around the corner, So
yeah. I have to actually ask, prior to actually working on the show professionally, did you ever do any kind of fan projects or fan films or even things inspired by Doctor Who?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I used to write and produce my own Doctor Who short films. So right from the age of about 7 or 8, my aunt had made me a Colin Baker was the Doctor at the time, I think, and so I had a big multicolored coat, and I used to write scripts. We had the old Cine 8 camera, film camera that my dad would film us on, and I'd get school friends to come around, and we'd go and run around the house. And as we got a bit more sophisticated, we got a camcorder that had little VHS tapes in it, and I'd write scripts, and I would get my cousins and my brother and school friends would come along on the Saturdays, and we'd go up to the local quarry, and they'd all be dressed in costumes that I'd made with props that I'd built, and sort of run around having a whale of a time, really. Blowing things up and setting fire to quarries by accident, and yeah.
In a sense, you were always predestined to eventually work on the show, really.
Well, in one sense, you could say I was in the right place at the right time when they needed someone. And in another sense, you could say I'd probably been working towards it all my life, and had sort of consciously or subconsciously, or a mixture of the two, had kind of been, trying to edge my way towards it. Yes.
So how did you end up working on the show?
Well, the short version is I was working in Roath Lock on Casualty. I'd done a few blocks of Casualty, and that's filmed in the same studios. There's about 8 different studios, 8 or 10, I think it is, studios.
In Cardiff?
In Cardiff at Roath Lock. It's a purpose-built studios. I think Doctor Who moved there in the middle of Matt Smith's era. And they've got 4 sound stages there, and then there's another 1 or 2 for Pobble, which is a Welsh language soap opera, and then at the other side of the building, Casualty has another 3 or 4 studios where they film most of their stuff. So I've been working on that. I think I'd done 2 6-week blocks, sort of almost back to back, so I'd been there for quite a while. And I just finished, and I'd been off, and I'd actually directed my own short film, which we were in the middle of editing. And basically, I just got a phone call. I was in the edit suites, putting the finishing touches on the sound mix, I think it was. And the voice on the end of the line says, "Hi, this is such and such from the Doctor Who production office." I was like, right. They said, "Look, our second AD is going away for a couple of weeks. We need someone to cover. Are you available?" And at this point, my knees are knocking, and my hands are shaking. I just I held the phone away from my head for a few seconds and pretended that I was looking at a diary and put it back and went, "Yeah, I'm free. I mean, I had no idea whether free or not, but I knew I was going to be." So yeah, basically it was literally, I think they'd probably gone to the Casualty people and said, do you know anyone who's free at the moment and is half decent? and they're giving them my name. So it really was sort of right place, right time. And as it happened, I went along, I did the 2 weeks, and the guy that I was replacing, they then promoted him up to be first assistant director for the last 2 episodes of series 12. So he needed basically to finish work then and then go and start work on prep. And so they asked me, would I carry on and do the rest of the series and the Christmas special, the Revolution of the Daleks? And yeah, I was quite willing to go ahead and do that.
That's great. So which episodes was it in series 12? Is it? Which episodes did you work on?
I worked on pretty much all of them in some capacity, apart from the two-parter that started it. That was completely in the bag by the time I got there. Now, because we shot them out of sequence, so I think I was the lead second AD on sort of episodes 6 onwards, I think it is. But I also did work on all the others, because obviously you mix the blocks up and you have some shooting, and then sometimes you have reshoots and bits and pieces of other stuff. So I think I worked on all of them bar the first 2, but I was the lead for 4 or 5 of them plus the Christmas special.
Wow. So with those and the Christmas special, you were essentially part of the Doctor Who kind of production team for a full series.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I missed the first couple of months of filming, but other than that, I was there for basically. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was absolutely a brilliant experience. One of the very first things I did was in the studio with the Jadoon. Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I've lost track of the timescale now, but I know we went off and we filmed the Jadoon by the cathedral. That was quite early on in it, and that was fantastic. We must have done some studio first, because I remember they had to do a very quick photo shoot because they realised they were going to be out and about in Bristol, not Bristol, wherever we were filming. Anyway, at the cathedral, and people are going to see the Jadoon, so they wanted to get ahead of the curve. So that we did a very quick photo shoot with Jodie and a couple of our guys in the Jadoon suits and put those out on Twitter, I guess. And then we went out, we overnighted and filmed the stuff out and about by the cathedral, and then inside when the Doctor's talking to Ruth. I think that was the first script I got to read, was the Jadoon episode 1. So I was literally sat there in the production office reading through this, and I think I squealed about 3 times just reading the script.
I mean, so did you have like the full script, like everything, including Captain Jack appearing and the reveal that Ruth was a doctor? Did you have all of that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because my role, you know, it's not one of the ones where you can really hide stuff, because I have to be in charge of getting people to and from where they're going and doing everything. So it's no good really, you know, and I hire all the extras as well, so I have to know what's going on. So yeah, there was never a time really when anything was hidden from me, so script wise.
Wow. So all of those huge kind of canon bending things in series 12 just was all in your knowledge, and I guess you had to keep that all completely under wraps.
Oh, absolutely.
During the film.
Yeah. I mean, when John Barrowman came down for the Jadoon episode, he was only there for one day. We had him, and he'd flown over, and we didn't know for sure that he was coming back later on because we hadn't got the latest script for Revolution yet. But it was kind of obvious that he probably would do, because they were setting something up. But we were filming in it was another cathedral, I think, but a really modernist one this time, and they'd converted it to look like the inside of a spaceship.
Oh yeah.
So it was a big sort of concrete dome-like thing, and they had to use really tight camera angles, because if you moved anything to the left, you'd see a stained glass window, and but they
had like really low lighting as well.
Yeah. And so we had, you know, rather unusually, we actually had a special makeup truck right next to the location, sort of parked up, and so that we could keep him as secret as possible. We had, he was wearing a hoodie, and we had runners with umbrellas every time he walked to and from, in case anyone saw him and papped him and got the secret out. So we were very, very aware of security. And I couldn't tell anyone. I mean, I think there were some rumors that there was going to be some big guest star, and even my mum was furious with me because I didn't even tell her. There was absolutely no way we were letting this one go.
I mean, it works. Like, I know there's always leaks about stuff like certain monsters and costumes, because obviously it's hard to keep those secret, especially when you're filming on location. But stuff like those plot threads of those characters returning and stuff about the timeless child, all that was completely unknown until the episodes came out.
Yeah, we were really lucky. We managed to pull that one off. I think because we got there very early, and it was quite a secluded place. It wasn't like the middle of the high street or anything. We couldn't have done it with the Jadoon, for example, but with the Captain Jack thing, despite the fact that, I mean, being the big sort of exuberant show off that he is, he would completely forget about his hood and the things, and he'd stride out onto the street, and we'd have people running after him, trying to cover him up. But yeah, despite his best efforts, we still managed to keep that one. Probably the hardest thing was when I went to the Gallifrey 1 convention in February, 2020, just before the lockdown, because we'd had the series was halfway through broadcast. So I think we'd had the Jadoon episode had been on air, but the Christmas special and the last two episodes, the last 3 or 4 episodes of the series and the special hadn't aired at that point. So whilst we knew everything was going on and the audience knew half of what had happened, we were desperately trying to, people were asking us questions, and we're trying to remember what we could and couldn't say at this point, where they got to in the scripts.
You get kind of like a list of things you are not allowed to say, kind of like officially, or is it just kind of all
officially
a general?
Officially, basically, it's don't say anything. It's just don't. If in doubt, just don't say anything. I took my cue basically from what had been released on the official channels. So if it had gone out on a poster or a tweet or anything like that, then I felt I could talk about it. But if there'd been radio silence from the BBC, then I just kept stum, because I don't want to be the person that's that's responsible for spoiling it for everyone.
Oh yeah. Just going back to the actual role that you served on the show, second AD sounds like kind of a very specific responsibility. Also, what actors do and what writers do. What sort of kind of scenes and shooting and just general production stuff were you in charge of as the second AD?
Okay. So the AD team is split into 3 parts. You've got the first, second, and third ADs, assistant directors. So the first one is on the studio floor, and they're in charge of the department. It's ultimately their role, and their job is really to keep things moving forward, keep the schedule of the day, make sure everything gets shot, and oversee sort of health and safety and that side of things, liaising with the director to the camera crews and the actors and all this. The third AD is basically their right-hand person on set. So they're doing a lot of running. They're in charge of all the runners, looking after things, everything from getting people to and from set to getting the tea organised and getting people on the buses in the morning to get from base to location, blah, blah, blah. So the second AD, which is what I kind of specialise in, is a twofold role, really. You're kind of basically in charge of all the logistics. So it's your job to do all the planning for the next day. So you've got to get all the information from the different departments about who needs to be where, when, what's coming in, and you put it all together on a call sheet and you make it work by hook or by crook, usually hammering it and crying and begging and pleading a lot. And then you come up with the plan for the day. And then so, if you're starting on camera at 8 o'clock with these two actors, you know that they've got to be ready by 7:55 to drive out there, which means if they take an hour in makeup, they've then got to be here at this time, 15 minutes before that to get into costume. It's 40 minutes drive from where they're staying. So you get them picked up at this time, and then you sort of phone them up and tell them what god awful time in the morning they've got to be up. You make sure that all the special effects people, makeup artists, people bringing action vehicles that you can use, anything like that, you make sure that's all going to be there and everyone knows what the plan is. And basically, you've just got to know everything that's going on and be able to sort of communicate that. Whilst at the same time, the more creative side of it is you go through the scripts and you are in charge of hiring all the extras, basically. So if you're in a school room, you realize you're going to need 25 kids to sit in the room, and anything that isn't the speaking role basically is up to you to find them and cast them. And sometimes with the director, they might want to see self-tapes from a few people that you found. Other times, some directors, they just go, yep, you do your thing, and just send me what I need. So that can vary. On Doctor Who, the interesting thing, of course, is a lot of the extras are we don't really call them extras, we call them supporting artists. And a lot of them are sort of returning people who play the monsters. So you get very often the same guys will be the people who play the Jadoon, the Cybermen, the Daleks, this, that, and the other. Largely because we know we can trust them. They're good creature performers, and you don't see their face, so there's no reason why you wouldn't use the same people over and over.
Is it like a real specialism then, being able to be a creature performer?
It can be. I mean, certainly we had boot camp for the Daleks, because the Daleks hadn't actually been in it en masse for quite a while. So we had to, I think a couple of the people had done Daleks before, but we had to, get them in there and teach them how to move and do all of that. With the Cybermen, they were basically new costumes, so they had to learn how to walk in those. So and walk in unison, whilst they've got tiny little eye holes, they can't really see what they're doing. So again, they have to sort of learn. So it's quite a practice skill, yeah. And also being claustrophobic as well. You've got to find out whether people can actually go all day with a big mask over their face and limited breathing and seeing and that kind of thing.
Of course, yeah. It's really interesting just hearing about all the responsibilities you serve as second AD. It's kind of all these jobs where, from an outsider, it's nothing that you initially think about, but really without people doing that, nothing would function. It would all be complete chaos and disorganization without you guys.
That's basically it, yeah. I mean, I've heard people say it's the most difficult job on set because just the logistics of getting everything done. I haven't done every job on set, so I can't say that, but I do know, most jobs are compartmentalized. So if you go in and you're a makeup artist, that's your role, and you will have a time to do that, and then there'll be time when you're racing around for other people. If you're a scene painter or a lighting person, you do your bit and wait, and then someone else comes in and does. Whereas with the ADs, you're constantly going around all the different departments and sort of making sure they're on track and know what's going on. And it's about, I always say you're the glue that holds it together and the oil that keeps it moving at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, in addition to kind of being a professional work on the show, you were, as you've established, a huge fan of the show. So bringing those together and working on the Doctor Who sets, working with this team, were there any particular highlights, be it working with particular people involved with the show or getting to visit any particular sets or locations for you?
For me, personally, the highlight was the sets, I've got to say. I mean, I loved the cast, Jodie and Mandip and Tosin and Brothers. They were a great bunch. But I do work with actors all the time on different, I've worked, more than a decade on different shows and things. So you get used to actors are people too at the end of the day. So I never felt, It wasn't like I'm working with Doctor Who or this character or anything, even though it was cool. But they were great people. For me, the TARDIS set was wonderful. But the real highlight was we had the Ruth Doctor's TARDIS, which is the big Hartnell console that they built for. I presume it was built for an adventure in space and time, and then got repurposed. And I think Capaldi's Doctor flew it at one point, didn't he? And it sort of keeps turning up anyway. So they built that, and they built this wonderful 3-dimensional set with the original huge roundels, the white roundels on the walls. And it was remarkable. It was brilliant. And they built it for the Ruth Jejune episode. And they knew that she was coming back and they were going to use it at the end of the series. So they just left it standing for months on end. So it was just there, and it was brilliant. And I used to sneak on it all the time and just go and sit and have my lunch on it and play with the buttons. And I probably shouldn't, but there was no resisting that one. And then all the different sets they built were incredible. I mean, the Aleppo sets, if you remember when they went to they found in Syria.
Oh yeah.
That was incredible. That was a great set. But what you probably don't realize is that is actually the same set as the Panopticon set on Gallifrey. So they kind of stripped some of the walls out, slightly repurposed it, painted it green, and put a staircase in that wasn't there before, took the fountain out of the middle. And they used basically the same structure to create, ancient destroyed Gallifrey. So as a fan of, the Deadly Assassin and things like that, to them to have kind of rebuilt that. So I think it was meant to be the room next door, but it was essentially, the same thing. I got to go and play on Gallifrey and run up and down stairs there. And, that was just amazing. And there was another one, the escape craft that they fly. I think Brad and Tosin fly into the cyber ship.
Oh yeah.
It was a round ship, and they'd kind of put it with the walls on casters. So the middle of it and the seats stayed where they were, but the walls actually span around them at the same time.
Oh.
So it created this incredible effect of everything in motion at the same time, and incredibly clever. I mean, the sets were brilliant. I mean, amazing.
So, yeah, that's amazing. That last one's really ingenious. Like I didn't realize that much was done in camera. I kind of assumed something was green screen or something.
Yeah, to be honest with you, they use very little green screen. I mean, obviously certain things have to be, but a lot of the sets were huge because they've got these massive sound stages, and they build them in complete 4 walls and often a roof, so you're completely enclosed in it, and you can point the camera in every direction and move it around, and create these incredible vistas that you never could have done in the old 3 walls and no roof kind of proscenium march kind of shooting they used to do back in the day.
Yeah, that's incredible. I had no idea it was that immersive. Yeah. And of course, you got to be kind of involved with those sets even more directly when you ended up in the Timeless Children story playing the Time Lord Omega. How did that come about?
Well, that came about because I was reading the script, and given that it's my job to hire the non-speaking parts, basically, I just thought it was too good an opportunity to pass up. I mean, I quite often like to have a little, passing walk through role in anything I work on. And so I'd kind of been eyeing the Doctor Who scripts and thinking, what, I've got to do something. And then there's just this one scene where you've got the regenerator Tectuan character walking down a corridor, and I think it says in the scripts, it's walking towards 2 the founding fathers of Gallifrey. This could be Rassilon and Omega, and they see each other, and they all turn away from the camera to face this bright future. A very atmospheric 30-second scene. And I was like, well, I've got to do that, haven't I? So I spoke to Jamie, the director, and I just said, hey, what do you reckon if I have one of these little? And he was like, yeah, you've got to do it, yeah. So I was like, right, well, I've got the director on board. That's the first thing. And so I just kept chipping away at it, and I just sort of suggested. We wanted to get the idea that uh, this was connected back to the early days. So I decided that Rassilon would be played by someone who looked roughly as close as we could get to Don Warrington, because Don Warrington plays Rassilon in the Big Finish audios. I think set in the early days of Gallifrey as well, if I remember rightly. So I thought, well, this is a great way of having that kind of continuity with that. So we got a rough, look-alike for him, and we had the regenerated Tectuan, who's someone we wanted to look as opposite to the original Tectuan, who was a white Irish woman. So we had a sort of a younger black chap, and then so it sort of left it open for me, and I thought, well, yeah, and it was great. Everyone was really up for it, and thought it was really good fun. They all knew that I was a massive fan by this point. So I had a proper costume fitting. They actually made the robes especially for me to my size. I think we reused the Time Lord headdress thing. It was sprayed a new sort of gold color, but that was definitely a sort of reused prop. And yeah, it was amazing. But all the way through, I kept thinking, at some point, someone's just going to say, "No, this is too important. We can't just give it to the AD. We've got to have a proper actor. We've got to have someone do this, someone do that." But no, right up to the day, and yeah, got there, and yeah, I was suddenly stood on set. All the actors had gone back to their trailers, and yeah, they shepherded us on and put these headdresses on us, and I suddenly stood there as a Time Lord on Gallifrey.
I mean, it must be so cool for you, because now you've pretty much solidified yourself within the canon of Doctor Who. Like, if you go on something like, I don't know if you've looked, if you go on the page for Omega on TARDIS Wiki and you scroll down, there's the image of you from the time as children, and amongst all of this really rich history spanning across all of Doctor Who media, and now you're a part of that.
It's brilliant. I love it. I mean, I might have used my sharp elbows and edged my way in, but yeah, damn it. I mean, God, if you're in that position, you might as well go for it. So why not? Yeah. No one had ever seen his face before, so why not have it as mine?
Incredible. Yeah, absolutely.
The incredible thing was, I think it kind of said in the script that it was meant to be silhouetted, and you could barely make out their faces, and they turned away. So I wasn't expecting, for people really to recognize it was me. So actually, when we saw the broadcast episode, I was amazed at how much of me you could see. And I thought, well, that's brilliant, isn't it? And just took a few screen grabs from it. And then on the anniversary, on the 23rd of November last year, they released a full-on shot of us facing the camera and on Twitter, and said, "These are the founding fathers of Gallifrey." So if there was even any doubt from the script that this could be Rassilon or Omega, even though we use the same costumes for Rassilon, it's now canon. Yeah, that's it. So.
100%. Now, you've mentioned costumes and having one made just for you. Obviously, we know that there's a lot of people who've been involved with the show who've been able to take away little pieces of costumes and props. Obviously, David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker have their costumes. Albert Valentine, who played the Empty Child way back in 2005, I believe he got to keep the gas mask. I was just wondering, was there anything from the show, either something you wore or something belonging to anyone else, that you managed to keep for yourself?
I did petition them very hard to let me keep the Omega costume, but unfortunately that's gone back into storage. Although it's rather coolly, it's in a box that it says Omega played by Mark Corden on such and such a date. So that's almost as cool.
Yeah.
I kept all of my copies of the sides and the call sheets and the scripts, and we had so many different versions of the scripts. You get pages and pages changing all the time. So I've got the pinks and the greens and the blues and the yellows and the double yellows and all this sort of stuff. So there's some archivists in all the years to come in from DWM will probably have a field day going through all the script changes that we went through. The only thing I kept, I would have loved to have kept bits and pieces, but there's the professionalism thing, and also the how do you get it out the door. But I did actually grab a handful of the rubble from destroyed Gallifrey, and sneak that away in a little pot. So I do have at home a little glass container with some of the destroyed rubble of Gallifrey in it, which, to spoil everyone's illusions, is actually old shredded rubber car tires that are liberally thrown around the place, and it looks absolutely terrible and like destruction. But if your actors have to fall over and do a stunt, they're not going to hurt themselves on it.
I mean, when it comes to taking something from the set, taking some of the rubble of Gallifrey, that's like the equivalent of astronauts taking rocks from the moon, isn't it?
Well, that was my thought. Yeah, what could be better? The only other thing I've got, which has nothing to do with the episodes I filmed at all, but I was walking down the long corridor outside the studios, and I had a pair of sort of checked trousers on and a shirt and a waistcoat. I tend to dress up at work, even if I'm, most people wear jeans and t-shirts. And Ray, the costume designer, literally collared me and pulled me to one side. And he said, "Are you cosplaying Peter Capaldi?" I was like, "Not consciously, but I don't know, maybe." And he said, "Well, I put him in some trousers very much like that." And so he took me over to the costume store and rifled through. He said, "Yeah, these are the ones. Yeah, it was the episode where he's underwater and with the ghosts underwater and that." And he said, "Yeah, these are the stunt double trousers for Peter Capaldi. If they fit you, you can have them." So I definitely sucked my gut in, and believe me, those trousers fit. So they're now hanging up in my wardrobe as well.
12th Doctor's trousers, that's incredible.
The 12th Doctor's stunt trousers, yeah. Not
same, they look the same. They're the same trousers.
Yeah. So yes, that did make me laugh.
That's amazing. So this is something I'm going to ask. It's not related to your work on the show, but it's just something that's so recent. At the time of recording, less than a week ago, it was announced that Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall would be leaving the show. As an insider yourself, to an extent, do you have any thoughts on or predictions on who the next Doctor or showrunner could potentially be?
I mean, I've not had nothing to do with this latest series at all, so I don't know anything about what's happening or what's going on. I genuinely don't. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. From my point of view, I hope the person they find to play the Doctor is sort of relatively unknown, a bit of the Matt Smith kind of thing. I think the Doctor works best when it's someone who the audience doesn't associate with another role. They can make it totally them, and someone with big personality, someone who can play the colourful, playful, banterish side of the Doctor, but also someone who can bring that world weariness and anger and frustration at all the wrongs and things like that. I think that's someone we need. So I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't
put a name to it.
But no, because I think any actors that that I would suggest are probably too famous to play it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Although I've worked with some brilliant actors who probably do a really good job, but I mean my personal hope, is that they would pick someone that I haven't heard of, so that they can be the Doctor, not such and such playing the Doctor.
Yeah, totally.
For showrunners, I mean, I think it'd be really interesting to have, not a white man show running.
That's true.
I mean, someone suggested Vinay Patel, who wrote Demons of the Punjab or Fugitive of the Judoon,
Oh
that I
yes.
liked. Now, I mean, I think they were both great stories and very well written. Whether he could or would want to show run is a different matter. I mean, the problem is show running is so different from just writing. I mean, you know, if you look at what Stephen Moffat did, you know, he wrote some amazing stories and then he became showrunner. And I love his era the best personally, but you know, you could see it was a much harder job to have overall control of 12, 13, however many episodes a year they were making back then. So it's not just a case of finding someone who's a good writer, but it's also someone who's a good producer. Or you find someone who's a great writer and someone who's a great producer, and they make a great team.
That's interesting.
But I mean, someone like, I mean, whether it's an obvious candidate or not, I don't know. But someone like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I think, would have a really interesting take on it. You know,
I've heard lots of people mention Phoebe,
yeah,
both as showrunner or as Doctor. Although I think she's perhaps too big for either.
yeah. I mean, I think the reality of getting her to showrun for a long, 3 or 4 years, which is what you'd want, is very, a Hollywood career taking off, that kind of thing. Curveball one, Lisa McGee. I don't even know. She wrote and created Derry Girls. But she was also a writer on Being Human, so she's kind of got that genre kind of experience, and with humor as well. I mean, I love Doctor Who when it's got a sense of humor about itself. Again, probably why I love the Moffat stuff, because he came from a comedy background, writing Coupling and shows like that. So, you know, maybe something like that, or controversial. But I've always loved Jane Espenson, who was one of the key writers on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's done Battlestar Galactica. She's done, I mean, everything. But she's American, so you know, is that a step too far? Who knows?
Don't know. I feel like people would definitely draw a line at an American playing the Doctor. I feel like people want the Doctor to be British, but behind the scenes, showrunner,
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, I mean, a really interesting one. I don't know if you've seen, but J. Michael Straczynski, I think that's how you pronounce it, who was the creator and showrunner on Babylon 5 back in the 90s.
Yes.
He's basically thrown his hat into the ring and said he would love to go and do it. And I mean, I funnily enough, during lockdown, I rewatched all 5 series of Babylon 5, and it is a brilliant show. So, you know, for someone who's a self-confessed fan of Doctor Who and has the writing chops of doing something like that, and he basically wrote, I think, every episode of like seasons 2, 3, 4 of Babylon 5, you know, and that's like 20 odd episodes a year. So he definitely,
which is more than a series of Doctor.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, American, but yeah, fantastic.
It's the bell. Yeah. Right. So one last thing before we say goodbye. Just want to find out kind of what you are working on right now. You said you're not working on Doctor Who, but you mentioned that you did a short film recently, and are there any projects you've got coming up soon that you'd like to promote as well?
I've got a short film which is currently available on Vimeo. It's called Keep Breathing. Directed that. It's actually a couple of years ago now. It's done the festival circuit, picked up a few awards along the way, which is very nice, especially for my lead actor and actress, who both won best actors in their fields in different festivals. We got best picture and best screenplay a couple of times as well. So that's about sexual consent and looks at the different perspectives of 2 people after a one-night stand, a man and a woman who get trapped in a lift together a few weeks after the night and are forced to confront, you know, their differing versions on how they perceive the night. I'm currently working on an ITV drama. It's called McDonald and Dodds. We're doing series 3, so we're just in prep for that at the moment. I've just finished a series, another ITV actually, called The Long Call, which may have a name change before it goes out, but that's a detective series set in Devon. And I also did a a film with Terence Davies called Benediction, which we shot at the end of last year. Which I think it's starting to do the festival run now, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to end up in the cinema or digital platforms. But they're all exciting things that are coming out very soon. And as for me personally, I'm trying to put together a feature. It'd be great to actually get a film under our belts now, because we did a very long short. It's about 20 minutes long, and I think our next idea is that we try and put something bigger and better, and come up with an idea that lasts for a feature length amount of time. So we're currently in the very early stages of development for that.
Oh, brilliant. And is there any way that for that upcoming feature people can support it in any way right now, or do you just have to wait?
Not at the moment. I mean, as I say, we are very much just looking for ideas. I mean, if people are writers and they have ideas or screenplays, I'd be more than happy to look through things. We are looking for collaborators. I both my writers, well, I say my producing partner and I are good co-writers, but I don't think either of us particularly want to be the main writer. So someone who's main interest is writing, but happy to work as part of a collaborative team. Maybe you could put a link to my email, or we'll do something.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that we can kind of put links to that and Keep Breathing. Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, that'd be great. Yes, I'd really love for people to be able to see that.
And that concludes our interview with the lovely, lovely Mark Corden. I hope that it was as fun for you guys to listen to as it was for me to listen to him. He truly was just an excellent person to talk to. Really, really lovely guy. If you're interested in any of Mark's work outside of Doctor Who, we will be putting the link to Keep Breathing, his short film, in the description. That's available to view on Vimeo. And if you just so happen to be a writer who has some sort of feature-length screenplay that Mark might be interested in, we'll put his contact details in the description as well. I hope that you've really enjoyed listening to this again, and also a huge thank you to Mark for being on the show. We really, really are truly grateful for you giving us your time. If you want to hear us speak to more people, and you want us to get more guests on the show, the best thing you can do really is support our podcast and have us known. So follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Acast, whatever's the best way for you to listen to us. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at BigOnThePod, I believe. And just kind of tweet at us, tweet to other people you'd like us to speak with, that sort of thing. And again, thank you for your support, and that's a thank you from me as well as Tim and Harrison. It means so much that you guys listen to us. This is just something that we kind of started doing for fun, honestly, and the fact that it's grown into something kind of as large as it is. I know it's nothing huge, but it's just kind of a moderately successful podcast. But the fact that we're getting people from the show and we're talking to them and we're just getting to really engage with the wider community of Doctor Who is a really special thing, and a really something that me and Tim and Harrison really, really value. So again, thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and bye-bye.